Do you know that Singapore used to have Primary 7 and Primary 8 and the Singapore education just kind of made a big U-turn since 2024? Yeah, because of that, a husband has just won an argument. So watch on if you're a husband. You see, since 2024, there's a drastic change in our education system. The new education system, known as NES, is kind of finally abolished completely and is now replaced by something else. Kind of lah, cause it's a long story. Now, if I say NES, you'll think of this. But no lah, the NES is basically streaming and it's not just in primary school or secondary school, it's for the both of them. Before anything, here's a disclaimer. This is a very basic overview. So if you want to know more, you can actually you need to ask MOE or old folks cause research for this isn't easy and come before you Google easily one. So basically, before 1979, the education system in Singapore was very different one. There were still primary school, secondary schools and whatnot. But unlike today, whereby 98% of primary school students went to secondary school, it wasn't the case back then. In the 1970s, about 1/3 of students who went to primary school eventually did not go to secondary school. Kids were failing their exams and dropping out, with them helping out in the household expenses since they were young. Back then, a report by then Deputy Prime Minister Keng Swee listed a few main problems. One is that students were speaking dialect at home, and therefore learning English and mother tongue in school was a challenge. Now remember this point first, English and mother tongue. The other problem is that the system is rigid. Students have different learning ability, so not all can cope in the same system. So the solution, streaming or NES, was introduced for both primary school and secondary school. It, as expected, faced quite a huge debate in parliament cause it's like labeling students into different classes. I tell you if it's implemented today, the woke kids are going to post countless TikTok videos to show how kind they are. Cause they didn't know that shopping malls at Boon Lay Shopping Centre, Jurong Point or Paragon exist. Or that C class, E class and S class exist. Or that the Blue Cat, Mothership and CNA exist. Yeah, so despite the argument, we can't even call it to have serious psychological impact, streaming still went on. Now, you might think there is an EM1, EM2 and EM3 system for primary school and the Express, Normal Acad and Normal Tech for secondary school. For secondary school, yeah, it was the Express, Normal Acad and Normal Tech that you should be familiar with. But it's not the same for primary school and it wasn't the EM1, EM2 and EM3 system. You see, for primary school, it started with the normal stream, the extended bilingual stream and the monolingual stream. At primary 3, they'll be streamed into the normal 6th-year primary school education whereby they'll learn the usual English and mother tongue. But if they pass primary 2 and fail at primary 3, then they'll still study English and mother tongue, but will study until primary 8, which was then known as the extended bilingual course. But if they fail in both primary 2 and primary 3, then they'll go for a monolingual stream, which focuses on both literacy and numbers, and they will also study until primary 8. Now, this obviously caused a lot of arguments among people, but this also leads to husband winning. Cause the idea of this video is sparked by a viewer who quarreled with her husband. The husband claimed that there used to be primary 7 and primary 8, but because there were not much reliable info online anywhere about primary 7 and primary 8, and so the wife thinks she has won. Jasmine knew, not all wife correct one, you bull.
Why did you ring when I was on my way home?
Hey, sorry, my fault that you actually ring on your way home, sorry. Yeah, so this normal, extended, and monolingual stream, which some people like to call it the primary 8 stream, was changed to the EM1, EM2, and EM3 system in 1991. Now, this is why the EM actually stands for English and Mother Tongue. Since remember, the streaming is kind of to split students who can handle 2 languages or just basic literacy. So, EM1 was for students who could use English and Mother Tongue as first languages. EM2 was for students who use English as a first language and Mother Tongue as a secondary language. While EM3 was for students who use English as first language and mother tongue to be just for basic literacy. In fact, there's even ME3 whereby it's the opposite, in which the mother tongue is the first language and English is just for basic literacy. With that, all primary school students will only study until primary 6 regardless of EM1, EM2 or EM3. Now, here's the thing, despite how bad it looks, how it widens the social class and how it makes people say,
"Get out of my elite uncaring face."
Based on numbers, it has worked very well. I mean, other than the fact that almost every kid in Singapore is schooling nowadays, compared back in the days when dropouts and failures were common, it has also earned Singapore the reputation as a world-leading education system. Nevertheless, the entire system eventually slowly removed streaming, from removing streaming in primary school in 2008 and removing streaming in secondary school from 2024 onwards. Instead, subject-based banding, or you can call it subject-based learning, is now the key. And therefore, after 45 years, the streaming system has now made a U-turn back to how it was kind of like. Will it work? We'll have to wait and see. But one thing is for sure, there are actually people who think that they are in EM1 when they unknowingly do EM3 actions instead. Watch this video and you'll know if you're one of them. And also thank you for spending about 5 minutes with me I really appreciate it